what do you think it means to own your story and just what I just brought up, telling our story and the right to tell our story? And why is it important?
Well, first of all, what a perfect, divine, and powerful moment to share this. And it leads up to what we just finished talking about, right? And
Mhm.
we draw different energies into our lives to help us navigate this place of relationship, because the most powerful relationship we'll ever have is the relationship with self. And it is that battle between ego, in essence, like who the true me is, and this story that I made up about me that I'm
Right.
either trying to deflect or protect.
Hey, everyone. Let's start healing. I'm Adrienne Murchison, and welcome to episode 168 of the Let's Start Healing podcast. We have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. This episode today is dear to my heart because it is about speaking our truth and also being stuck in our story. I wanted to do this episode because I was talking with someone that I love dearly, and we were talking about the idea of it being okay to share your story if it involves other people. And is it fair if you share something publicly or with someone else just in a conversation and it involves someone else? Is that fair? You know, if something happened to you and you want to talk about it, is that fair? And so I think that with respect to whoever the other party may be in our story, that it is okay to share our truth. And it is essential if we choose to do that. I mean, we don't have to walk around sharing all these personal things about ourselves. But if we choose to share something, some aspect of ourselves that is personal, and in some way it is healing for us to do that, then it's my belief that that's what we should do. That is most definitely what I choose to do, unless I choose not to. And then I also wanted to talk about being stuck in our story. And so I have a dear friend and a returning guest, self empowerment coach and an energy healer, Jaaz Jones. She and her daughter have Mad Miracles. And it is a women's empowerment organization. And Jaaz has spoken about this type of thing often. So I thought it would be great to talk to her about it. And before I get there, I just want to share a couple of things regarding this and why it touches me, and actually pose some questions to you as well, to just maybe this resonates for you. Me, it has taken me uh, years to be able to stand up and speak my truth. And I know that a lot of people who are friends of mine through the years might not think that that was an issue for me because, you know, I can be very direct, but it has been an issue for me. Sometimes I've just said what I have to say, but when it comes to me and the things that I need to heal within myself, speaking my truth around those things has been a real process. As a writer, I used to think that there were things that I would want to write about in writing my story. And I couldn't write about those things because they might affect other people. And that's a choice that I might make, to write about something or not write about something. But then as I started growing into myself and into more feeling more empowered and having more self-love and having more self-esteem, in many cases, I lost the need to write about certain aspects of myself that I might want to share. But another part of that desire is to help other people. Because if it's one thing that I have learned in this life, And that is that whatever you are going through, whatever I am going through, somebody else is going through it too. And you might feel alone and you might feel like you're the only one that is experiencing that thing that you are experiencing that might have you so troubled. But that's not true. It's not true. And so, if I can share something that might help someone else in some way to just not feel alone or to give them encouragement, to let them know that they too can come through it, then that is what I'd like to do. And in thinking about this, I wrote something down, and because it was helping me to realize I didn't even know how to speak my truth or to ask questions when I was growing up. I I wrote this down. I didn't know how to say, "I don't understand." I say that all the time now. I don't understand, but I don't understand. But I didn't know how to say that when I was growing up. And I used to want to be an actress growing up. I would talk to my parents all the time about how I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to take acting classes. And finally, they paid for me to go to these expensive acting classes at Studio Arena in Buffalo, New York. And I went and I was just lost when I got there because I thought we would like be trying out these little skits and we would learn to act. Well, the first day that's not what we did. We were breathing, doing all this breath work. We were pretending like we were on fire. We were just doing all these different things. And I was like, what does this have to do with acting? And I did not know how to even ask that question. When things would come up in school and I couldn't connect the dots because it didn't make sense. Like I remember being in school and learning about, obviously, can't do this now, but I remember when we were studying enslavement in school. And then we were learning about serfs, and I didn't understand. I would be confused and I didn't know how to say, well, I just don't understand. But now I know how to say it, and it's been a process. So I want to ask you a couple of questions before I get to Jaaz Jones. What truth, and this is just for you to think about and say, what truth have you been holding inside that you've never said out loud, even to yourself? And that really has me thinking about eye gazing. I don't know if you've ever done eye gazing or you know what that is, but that is when you and someone else really just spend a few minutes looking into each other's eyes, and one person is giving love and the other person is receiving love. Well, another aspect, another way to do this is to look in the mirror and to do that process in the mirror. And so you're just giving that person that you see in the mirror yourself love. So, again, the question is, what truth have you been holding inside that you have never said out loud? And is there a story in your life that's asking to be told, not to hurt anyone, but to set yourself free? And have you ever stayed silent to protect someone else's comfort while betraying your own voice? Have you ever done that? I have done that. I have done that. And I mean, wow. There's a variety of different ways that we can do something like that. What would it feel like to speak your truth, even if your voice shakes? How do you define the difference between honoring your truth and reliving your pain? And that speaks to being stuck in our story. What might become possible for you if you gave yourself full permission to tell your story? That's that's pretty deep. What might it be for you to give yourself full permission? How free might you feel? Who are you when you're not trying to protect or manage anyone else's version of the story? Even for yourself, to just sit with how that might feel. And the reason that getting stuck in our story resonates for me is because one day, years ago, Jaaz and I were out and we went into an art gallery, and I wanted her to meet the person who owned and managed this art gallery. And the two of them got into a conversation about that person and an experience that they had had. And Jaaz told this person that she was stuck in her story. And I don't think that would have occurred to me. It would not have had she not said it. And I thought, wow, I thought, what am I stuck in? How do I do that? Because I could clearly see what she was saying with that person because I was outside and objective. And so I thought, how do I do that? And so from that point on, I started thinking about not only being stuck in our story, but what might I tell myself over and over again? It was in therapy 30 years ago when my therapist enlightened me to my own self talk. And she told me that I would always say, I should, I should have done this. I should do that. I should have, it was more than that. And then it helped me to realize and see that in others in terms of self talk. That's pretty powerful, the conversation that we have in our own mind. All right. All right. Let's get to it. Let's meet Jaaz. Let's start healing. Welcome, Jaaz.
Hello, beautiful.
Thank you for being here. I am super excited about our conversation, and I wanted to dive in asking about the Lord. But before we get to the Lord, I want to ask you about the butterflies. Obviously, I know how special butterflies are to you, but share with listeners the butterfly and the meaning and the beauty of what is behind you.
Well, wings up. Behind me is my backdrop. And so, any of your listeners, or if you've seen me on any of my chats, I am in my Mad Miracles room. And this is where we go into the chrysalis and come out and allow our wings to soar. So I thought this would be the perfect place for us to dive in and spread our wings about our story.
Absolutely, absolutely. And before we get into the story angle of this podcast episode, I want to just check in with you and ask you about how you're vibing with God right now. I find God to be so fascinating when it comes to how he treats me.
Well,
How
I have to preface it by this, by saying she is always present and leaving clues at such a pivotal time that you asked me to do this today, right?
Mhm.
Wasn't thinking about the date or the day, but just even in the moments of when I don't know, I know.
Right.
In essence, to say that, God is forever present and always whispering and leaving clues. And I got a really huge whisper today. So I
Tell
have to
me.
tell you, uh, first of all, 2 days ago, I was walking around the lake with my daughter, and this is transparency because I know we're going to be talking about our story, right? And sort of in the midst of my story and giving grace to, I'm always talking about the energy work and the breath, right? And giving grace to being in transition, right? That I acknowledge, thus you, my sister, I was like, I miss my tribe.
We
you
miss
know,
you too.
oh my goodness. And so I'm navigating in this transition while holding the vision of the space that I'm in, right? And I just hit some walls. I hit some challenges, and my daughter, my other accountability partner, is like, okay, we're gonna go for a walk and talk. And shh. And this was Wednesday, and so the message, it was, we're here at Floasis. By the way, we're on the inside, but Floasis. This is where I do my
Yeah.
space. This is the place that I believe that my mother, and that's one of our bonds, our mothers, right? That
Yes.
people always ask me, how did I find this? I didn't. It found me. And my mother was like, this is your new place, butterflies and all. Well, this morning, I occasionally pop on TikTok, very rarely, right?
Yeah.
But I had all these messages and I clicked on TikTok, and there was this pop up that came up that said, there's a woman in heaven that wants you to know that she is in peace and joy.
Mm.
Okay. So I'm like, okay, mom. And it was like, and she has a message for you. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go with this. Well, it said this message is, in essence, you have all that you need, and everything is aligning as it should, and taking care of your home and your family, this place, right?
Yeah.
And I had just expressed to my daughter in the midst of living into the vision how it seemed like everything was like falling apart all around me, but
Mm-hmm.
staying focused on the vision. This reminder was, remember that all is well. And
Yes.
then it said, forward that, how it gives you those messages. I was like, okay, I'm not going to do all this. But then it said, I never go on WhatsApp. It said, send this to the fifth person on your WhatsApp, or not send it. It said, go to the person on your WhatsApp, the fifth person, the first letter of their name is the first letter in your loved one's name. So my mom's name, Celeste.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who the fifth person was?
Who?
Cheryl.
Get out.
I was like, now that's our other bond. So like
Yeah.
the three of us have this, right? We
Yeah.
both call our mothers Mimi, like they're Mimi to. So I'm like,
She calls
it's
her mother
Cheryl.
Mimi as well.
Yeah. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
all of this alignment. And then you and I, we have this schedule today.
Yeah.
So God, spirit, like how am I, it is, God always leaves clues. And there's always the reminder. So I go outside, I'm doing my breath work in Mimi's garden, right? Having this moment.
And you have a sign that says Mimi's Garden, don't
Right.
you?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's where I go outside to do my breath. And then it's like this mist just started coming down while I'm there doing the breath work. And I just, Adrian, I know, there's this space where we talk about our relationship with God, what we believe, the belief and the knowingness. And for me, those reminders are my knowingness. It was the
Yes.
knowingness of the presence of God as I felt that dew, that moisture touching my body, just kissing my skin, that's my mom.
Yeah.
That is God's
Mm.
presence in my mother's spirit, because in this thing it said she's there with you
Yes.
and she's always watching over you. And I felt that presence so strongly. So how about on this day 24 years ago, because I'm a numbers person, dates, I go back and I realize, so I sent my daughter a note who this launched 2 days ago, where the message came from. On this day, 24 years ago, I was in my car leaving Houston, coming to Austin to be with my daughter for a day surgery. And it caused me to come in early. I was going to come. The last time I saw my mom was for my birthday, right? And I said, I'll see you Easter. Well, because my daughter had the day surgery, I'm driving in today,
Mm-hmm.
24 years ago, to be there with my daughter. And so I stayed through the weekend,
Mm-hmm.
which made this day the significance that it was because of my daughter's need for me to come in early that this was the last time that I saw my mother alive. And if I had waited till Easter, I would have missed her because
Yeah.
she passed on Good Friday.
The 13th, right?
So, yeah. So,
April
like I said,
13th.
I know that was a long way around, but when I say that, wow, God's whisper, the reminder that the spirit is always
Yes.
present, always,
Yes.
always present. And when we allow ourselves to be present to spirit, the clues are there, the answers are there. And so, what a
And
wonderful day to share this with my beloved sister.
thank you so much for sharing. And and people call those clues all different things. They're sometimes I call them kisses or pokes or synchronicity. They're all
Mhm.
kinds of things, but they are definitely speaking to that clear connection with God and communication. And I love it
100%.
and feel you completely, completely. And
Yeah.
I am evolving, and it's hard to explain how I'm evolving, but I'm evolving, sort of breaking into something else. And I can't even tell you what that something else is. I
Mhm.
just know that it's happening. And so as
Yes.
it's happening, it's messy, you know?
Yes. Yes.
So
Ditto.
it's messy as it happens. And I'll just say, the way that God is just carrying me is
Yes.
amazing, and blessing me,
Yes.
blessing me in all different kinds of ways. And I just am grateful. And I've been writing in my journal how I've been feeling, or if I get upset about something, and just the awarenesses that come to me. The main thing that has come to me is to be present. When I'm not
Yes.
present, all kinds of bad things happen. so,
Yes.
so that the main thing is to be present. And I mean, it's hard to, I don't see how a person can be present every second of the day, but just trying, the willingness to try to be present as much
Mhm.
as I can is helping. And
Well,
so,
from an awareness standpoint, and us both being students of the course, right? One of my favorite passages, like when you're talking about being fully present all the time, one of the things that the course says is we're much too tolerant of mind wandering, because in our presence, the ego is always present, right?
right.
And there's that tendency we defer over to that conversation with Shigo that
Yes. And I
that takes
found,
us out of presence, but not right.
right,
That's like
right.
God's clue is like, even when it appears that we're not present, the presence is always present.
That's so true.
Yes.
God's always here. Spirit, energy,
Yes.
that holy energy,
Hmm.
Holy Spirit is always here, always. Well, thank you
Yes.
for sharing that. And I guess I'll have us dive into what we are going to talk about. And I wanted to have this conversation with you. I was talking with a loved one about the right to tell our story. And when I bring that up, I don't mean with the intention of throwing anyone under the bus. With the best of intentions, I believe we have the right to discuss our experiences if we want to, if that helps us as far as moving along our journey. And so, what do you think it means to own your story and just what I just brought up, telling our story and the right to tell our story? And why is it important?
Well, first of all, what a perfect, divine, and powerful moment to share this. And it leads up to what we just finished talking about, right? You asked me about my relationship with God, God's presence. That's my story, right? And our story is our way of navigating what I call the human experience, right? And in the words of Wayne Dyer, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, not human beings. And our story is about our human experience that is actually led by our spiritual being. And why I believe in terms of your question, why tell our story? Our story isn't about telling it for other people. It's about expressing it for our own personal awareness. Again, I'm going to quote the course where it says healing, because I believe our story is the journey of our healing. And healing is where two souls come together, recognize their oneness, and become glad, right? And when we are sharing our story, we are shining the light on the boogeyman, the ego, right? And when we do that, we're giving permission for other people to share theirs and to see where they connect and identify, right? And so our story is our way of navigating relationship. One of my expressions that I always say is that we may have come in on a different boat, but we're all in the same ship, relationship. And our story is whatever story we tell ourselves. Our story is really about how we navigate relationship. The story we have about our mother, our father, our whatever it is, ourselves. It's all about the relationship and our human experience. And the importance of expressing that when I talk about shining the light on the boogeyman, whatever we suppress and we keep inside, what happens is we get stuck in that story. Like, oh my God, I'm depressed because whatever the imposter syndrome, whatever's going on that we suppress inside, it has us stuck in it. When we begin to express that, when we allow ourselves to, when we're expressing it, we become the witness. And I'm always talking about, in navigating through energy, the importance of being our own neutral witness. Our neutral witness is witnessing the story where our ego is stuck in that story, because the ego actually operates as if that's the truth,
Hmm.
right? But our
Yes.
story is not the truth. Our story is just our story. What
Yes.
happens when we become the neutral witness, we're able to witness that's expressing this story so that we can learn the self, the true self, how
Yes.
we operate, and to create distinction between the story and the storyteller, right?
Mm,
I'm not the story. I'm the storyteller.
right.
But we operate as if we are that story. Like this
Right.
really happened.
Yeah, and there's two things that are coming up for me when you bring that up. One is, and I feel like you're saying part of this is that I've heard Lisa Nichols say, we don't have a right to keep our story. Our story is for someone else. So if we've been
Mhm.
through a powerful experience
Yes.
and, we feel like, oh, this is, I'm just going to hold on to this and this is private, really, this can help someone else. And of course,
Mhm.
you have a right to not share. I'm not trying to say otherwise. But what do you think about that?
Yes. Partially yes. I believe personally that our story is for our own healing first, right? And being a practitioner, an energy practitioner, I always express I don't heal anybody, right? People that'll come to me and it's I expose you to the tools, right? But it's about where we are operating that wavelength. So in terms of our story being for someone else, that's a part of the projection. So I go back to again, God leaves clues. Our story is a clue for someone else to see their own, because the only reason that you can connect with my story or I connect with yours is because of what's inside of me that has summoned your energy, summoned
Mhm.
that story, right? And so again, it goes back to the relationship. I believe that our story is about healing ourselves, thus healing relationship. And
Yes.
that is why it's important to tell. But rather, so I have to quote my mother again. The the quote that launched my book. When the pupil is ready, the teacher will appear, right? For what? Right? Whatever we draw unto us, whoever we attract in relation to our story, that's their story, right? Like you and I, we have a story about our mothers and how our mothers brought us together. There, energetically, there is a story of what I've projected and of what you have projected that brought us to relationship, right?
Yeah.
That my sharing your story, it connected with you because you're aligned with the story. Like we could hear somebody's story and it was like, oh, that doesn't even resonate, doesn't connect, right? But when we connect, it is
We draw
our
to each other. We draw to each other.
we draw, yes, and it is, I go back to it. Healing is when two souls come together and recognize their oneness. It's a part of the oneness. And so our story is for us. It's my
Yes.
story is for me. It's a part of my healing. And as in our sistership, what resonates is that I attracted you for my own healing. You attracted me for your own healing. And so
Right.
collectively, we're healing in the oneness. Does that make
Yes.
sense? Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
the healing, so the what we experience externally, say if we use ourselves for each other, that's just one part of it because the healing really comes from inside. You know how you just said
Mhm.
you're the storyteller, you're not your story.
Right.
Because the healing is coming from inside. And I think about years ago, I always bring this up when I asked you, how come this didn't bother you? And it did this to me. This jacked me up. And,
Yeah.
I've been dealing with this my whole life. And why aren't you dealing with it in the same way? And it took me years to understand your answer, and your answer was like, I just don't. I just don't, because that it didn't define you. The experience
Mhm.
did not define you. And
Mhm.
that's the difference. And the more that I've healed, it has not defined me,
Right.
as it did years ago. And that's from within. It didn't
Hmm.
come from me asking you this question in 2009 and you giving me a response. Although we were drawn together, we were brought together by forces greater than us, you know?
Exactly.
So that real healing, it's also coming, it's twofold.
Hmm.
It's
When
twofold.
the pupil is ready, right? The
Yes.
lessons, everything, it's already there. When we're
Yes.
ready for it, Don Miguel Ruiz once said, "How do we know when we've been healed? When you can touch the scar and it doesn't hurt anymore." Right?
Right.
When we can express this, and that is a part of telling our story. When we can tell our story, when we can express our story without suffering from the story, right? Because we can, again, it's the neutral witness. Oh, so that's what happened. It's just what happened. It's not my
Mhm.
attachment to the outcome. It's just what happened, right? That we are able to express that and not get stuck in that.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
And getting stuck in the story, and I was thinking this when you were talking a little while ago, some people, they do let the story define them. And what gets me about it is you can change your mind. you know, you
Mhm.
can forgive. You can say, I want a better way of looking at this or experiencing this, or as a Course in Miracles would say, I could have peace instead of this.
Yes.
So it's a willingness to not be stuck in the story. There has to,
Exactly.
now, I mean, I do understand that some people aren't even aware of it, but some people can be so angry or bitter or resentful about what happened to them, which is real. What happened to them is real. But also how you are now and how you heal now is a choice that has to be made to move forward.
Mhm. Exactly. And
Yeah.
something that as we're talking that comes up for me, and I was sharing with you this conversation with my daughter in being this in a space of transition, right? And we get to a place in our lives that uh we have more reflective moments, right? There are more years behind us that there is a reflection of. And so as we project, our projections coming from that reflection, what I recognize is that my my lesson is not your lesson and vice versa, right? And I believe that to help someone heal is not to tell them what to do. I go back in terms of how we serve others. It's not to tell them what the lesson is, right?
Mhm.
It is to share our own journey and healing from the lesson, not to project onto someone else what they need, because we don't know another's contract. See, I don't know what your contract is that you made with God,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? To say, so
Yeah.
when you said to me, well, how could you just do that? Because that wasn't my lesson from it,
Right.
right? However, we can share similar experiences. And I believe what we do is we can help one another by getting out of our own blind spot, right? Like, oh, now let me look at this from Adrian's point of view. Are you saying, let me see this from Jazz's point of view? Ah, that is being able to see around rather than getting stuck in, and a big awareness. I believe, and this is something that I'm navigating with someone right now. I know where my pain bodies are, right? I know what is not impacting me, and I know what is, right? Um, but because of someone that I'm in relationship with has a certain pain body, they believe I should go through the same process. That I need to look at my past the way they've looked at theirs.
Yes.
Right? That,
Yes.
oh, like they have defined by what they've done. Let me tell you what you need to do. These are your issues. Well, really, you don't know what my issues are any more than
Yeah.
I know yours, right? We
Yeah.
so we've got to be careful in being a witness to, not to become a judge of.
Right. Absolutely.
Yes.
And you were just saying about how being able to reflect, as we get older. And so one of the things I'm able to discern is what you just brought up, is how we each have a different thing in life that is a lesson, or the thing that we have to, for our own journey, we're called to overcome and break through. And what might be, like you just said it plain and simply, what is my thing is not your thing, and or the next person's thing. So we each, and it's so fascinating to me because it can be so easy when we look
Right.
at, like, you could look at me, and because you're just so, strong in that area, or I could look at you in another area, and it's just vice versa. But we all have our own journey. We
Right.
all have our own journey. And I've tried to accept that. And I can't say I'm a master in any way, but I have definitely tried to accept that in the loss of my brothers, just in terms of just accepting, we all have different journeys.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we can serve. So again, going back to telling our story, that we can serve as one another's aha moments, right? Like when you shared about my expressions to you of
Mhm.
areas of overcoming, that for you there's an aha moment, not that you have to do what I do, but it again, it expands our own witnessing. That's why I believe that we're fascinated by movies, and we're fascinated by storytelling, right? Whether it's listening to a song, whether it's watching, reading a book, or that we get fascinated because we can find ourselves without getting stuck in ourselves, because we do
Mhm.
navigate from our own story, right? But when we can
Mhm.
bear witness to somebody else, it's allowing us to get outside of our own head to be the witness of. And it's like, what? And then we don't feel so alone. Like, oh my
Right.
God, you dealt with that? Oh, what?
Yeah.
Oh, how did you do that? And then it expands our ability, I truly believe, to navigate our journey. That's why I say we came in on different boats, but we're all in the same ship. And
Mhm.
we draw different energies into our lives to help us navigate this place of relationship, because the most powerful relationship we'll ever have is the relationship with self. And it is that battle between ego, in essence, like who the true me is, and this story that I made up about me, that I'm
Right.
either trying to deflect or protect,
Right.
right?
Right.
We're doing
Right.
one or the other. That
Yeah.
we can see somebody else's story and recognize that, oh, wow, maybe I've made this a little too complicated. So something else I want to share with you. If you haven't seen it, I watched Oprah's special with Viola Davis, Finding Me, and we're telling her
Yes.
story,
Yes.
right? And Oprah made the statement, and we've heard Oprah share her story, right? She said, "Girl, I grew up poor. I thought I understood poor." She said, "But you was poor,
I
right?"
agree. I
Yeah.
agree. I think about, I did see that special, but
Okay.
completely, because I have Viola Davis's book, and I,
Yeah.
know Oprah's story, obviously. I thought the same thing. Like, she was on another level.
I hope right.
Viola Davis was on another level.
And how, so this is exactly what you called us here for today. It's like, so why did Viola need to tell her story? And as she said, it was finding me, right? She said there was something that she had an expectation on, a story that she told herself, that when she got to this place, it was supposed to be a certain way, and it wasn't. So she had to go back and look at little Viola's story. And that's what it's for. Now, there are those of us reading that, experiencing what she shared to be like, oh, wow. Like when Oprah had that epiphany, and any of us that watched that had the epiphany, like, wow,
Yeah.
your level of courage, your focus, like, ooh, what I can glean from that, right?
Hmm.
But she was talking about how she navigated through her pain, through her story, because, and again, it's reminding ourselves of the story, right? Everything that she said about the boys, the people chasing her and calling her these names, not seeing herself as beautiful, all of that got her to where she is. And all of that was a story.
Hmm.
And I'm not talking about the things that happened, but the story that she told herself. And then again, as we get older, okay, wait a minute. My ego came up with this whole idea. Let me reflect here,
Yeah.
right? And we have to go back to where the story started.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The reason that this is so such an important topic to me is because that has helped me being able to speak my truth. And speaking my truth doesn't mean I'm telling 100% of my life. I'm not doing
Right.
that. But me being able to voice and express my truth has helped me to heal,
Yeah.
because I didn't feel that I had a right to express myself. I didn't feel I had a voice. And that can
Mm-hmm.
surprise some people in my life, because my family, we argue and debate, and I might yell and things like that. And so you think, what are you talking about? You have a voice. But no, I mean, I've had all kinds of situations in life where I haven't had the confidence to really express and stand up for myself, especially
Mm-hmm.
in relationships. So I think it's so important to uh, speak my truth. And if I want to share something, then I share it. So my question for you is, for your clients, your women's empowerment coach, if someone wants to share something, but they're afraid of how others will react, it might be someone that is associated with something that happened to them, or it might just be the public, like the workplace or wherever. They're insecure about sharing their truth and something that they want to express in terms of their life experience. What do you say to them?
Mm-hmm. So, first and foremost, my response is my healing is my responsibility. Your response is not my business, right? And it is our ego, she-go, that goes into the questioning a judgment, because the ego is always searching for validation, because in truth it doesn't really exist, right? So when the light is about to be shined on the boogeyman, the boogie woman coming out from behind the curtains, when that light comes on, the ego, she-go, gets defensive. Ooh, what might they say? What are they going to think about me? Well, what difference does it make anyway, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
what are they
Mm-hmm.
thinking about you if you're not sharing your story, right? Because whatever is anybody is thinking about whatever it is you're sharing has nothing to do with you, and has everything to do with them and where they are,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it is shining our light. It is our willingness to be vulnerable, to be authentic, to be our truth, right? And in response to what you said, telling the truth doesn't mean telling everything. Telling the truth is about shining the light, right? Like, there is absolutely nothing for me personally, right, that if you were to blast it to anybody, I don't care. Ooh, let me tell you what I found out about Jaaz. Oh, child, I could have told you that. It's in chapter 4, right? That it is when we suppress these secrets, right? That what comes up is the low vibration, vibration of guilt, shame, blame, right? That's what happens in the dark. When we shine the light on it, we recognize that guilt, shame, and blame is nothing but a story that we've made up. So whatever their responses are, it doesn't matter, because it does not change your truth.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And so
And the
what do
truth
you
will what? The truth will make you free. It doesn't
right.
say set you free. So I want to preface that why not worry about it? Because again, you're getting stuck in a story that you've made out about somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
rather than standing in your truth. And when you turn the light on, it's on. And what is out there is what is out there, right? Our reactions to it is just simply another story that's evolved. Yeah.
So I mean, we're talking about this, but I don't know if we've said for people who are trying, if we've answered this question. If
Mm-hmm.
someone wants to tell their story, but they don't want to be absorbed in it,
Mm-hmm.
what can they, are there any tools that they can, or practices that can alert them to where they are, in this process, or what they can do?
Absolutely, 100%, which is why I teach what I teach. That's why it is, breath work is so important. Like, right? It is the one thing out of everything. Breathing is what connects us physically, mentally, emotionally, every energetic body. That when we allow ourselves to pause and connect with breath, that's all there is that breath. And what is the truth in that breath? Clear intention plus focused attention equals divine retention. And we have to start with that clear intention. And the clear intention is one of the hardest questions to answer for so many people. What do I want? What's the truth about what? Not the story, not what mama or daddy, teacher told me that I should be want, right? What is it that you really want? And ultimately that want is about how we want to be in the world, how we want to feel, like love, peace, joy, freedom. What is that? What's that one thing, the one thing that sets the tone of your journey? And when we get really clear on that, oh, this is freedom. This is freedom right here. Before you sit down and get into your story, my favorite question is, what's the thing for, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we get clear, so what the thing is for is getting clear about, well, what's my intention here? What do I want? I want to be free. What's that want? I want freedom. I want peace. So what is that? And then the focused attention, because so often we hear in response to going out into the world and in our reflection, right? As we move on in life and we reflect back, oh, I didn't intend to. I didn't intend to go through all of those failed relationships. I didn't intend to be in search of a new career. I didn't intend to, right?
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
truth is, it's not what we didn't intend, it's what we attend. Where am I putting my attention? And when we get clear about our story, and as we're navigating through it, we got to first recognize, I'll go back to what I said earlier. I am not the story. I made all this crap up. It's how I made up, how I've navigated through my world. Well, how has that story served you? So when I say what I want, I got to look at, well, how has it served me? Am I keeping myself stuck and not expressing my creativity? Where am I stuck, right? Like looking at that. Now, Where is my focused attention? What have I been putting my attention on? Right? Oh, has my intention been on uh connecting with people who are materialistic? Because when I was growing up I felt lack, like whatever that is, like I didn't have enough stuff. Oh, so now I'm externally looking for stuff, whatever that story is. As we begin to look at every relationship, right, we can see how we've drawn in energetically, because what we draw is not our intention. What we draw, right, where attention goes, energy flows. So
Yes.
what am I putting my attention on? So as we are navigating our story, what I
Mhm.
invite everyone to do is to sit down and write for yourself.
Yeah.
What do I want? Right? What's my intention here? Start with that. Be with that. Don't rush to judgment on the answer, but be with the feeling. Like, what is it that you, what is it that I really want? And let me tell you, depending upon where we are in our life, that evolves, right? Let me tell you, baby, what I want in my 60s ain't what I wanted when I was in my 40s and what I wanted in my 20s, right? So it's being present to our evolutionary process. So to be even more clear, what do I want now?
Yes.
How do I want to feel now? And then allowing ourselves to examine the story as the neutral witness. So, in order to manifest this transformula, it is learning to practice neutral witnessing.
Yeah. That's so powerful. And I understand so clearly what you're saying. And when you're talking about what do I want, something that I've also done in my life is ask myself, who do I want to be? And
Mm-hmm.
also, more recently, what am I doing? To peel back the layers for me, I have to be brutally honest about what am I doing? And
Absolutely.
be brutally honest with God, who is nothing but love and grace.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a comfort there, but the angst is when I'm not sharing it. If I don't share it, then I feel all the agita.
Mm-hmm.
But
And what you're
just,
applying is the transformula, right?
yeah,
Even paraphrasing, like, what do I want? What am I doing? That's where your attention is, right? The doingness, that's the action, that's the activity, and is what I'm doing in alignment for what I really choose to be?
exactly.
Yeah. And
That's
that's when we
exactly right.
recognize when we're out of alignment.
That's exactly right. That's exactly
Mm-hmm.
right.
Yeah.
Wow, this is so good.
This is delicious.
It
Thank
is
you.
very delicious. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. I wanted to dive into this and did you ever tackle in your evolution speaking your truth with the life that you've lived?
Well, at least once a day.
At least once
Okay.
a day. I'm
Honestly, every
I'm
day.
surprised.
Every
I'm
yeah.
surprised.
Yeah. But see, here's the thing is that which we are here to teach teaches us, right? Tackling my truth, it every day it is being authentic with myself of answering that question, like, what's my clear intention here? What do I really want? How am I showing up in the world? Who am I being? Right? And it is always allowing myself to be authentic. So you're familiar with my first book. That's how we came together, right? The heart of the book is love the you in the mirror. That was the chapter that is the core, and that really the transformational work and the teaching came out of love the you in the mirror. And I remember when I launched my book, I was going to a presentation speaking to a room full of women in one of my most painful moments, navigation. I even have a picture. Matter of fact, you've seen that picture, and I remember taking that picture being taken when I was doing this presentation. And I remembered like just days before, oh my God, how am I going to stand up in front of all of these people, all of these women, and talk about loving me in the mirror? And right now, I don't even like the image I see. Truth, right? And that's really how the talk evolved. How do you love the you in the mirror when you don't like the image you see? That's
Mm-hmm.
the difference. And so when I say I am confronted with my truth each and every day, and this is something that I've learned, and I'll go back to the beginning of this talk, how we got to this moment today. And I told you all of the clues that God left along the way. When we ask God, we've heard this saying, right? When we ask God for patience, He doesn't give us patience, right? God gives us opportunity to practice patience. So, in order for me to be authentic, to truly be an energy empowerment coach, means that in the middle of my truth, girl, on those days when I feel totally blocked, on those days when I feel weighted down, when those days when I feel unauthentic because my ego is judging what I'm doing or not doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Be still and know it's not always about the doing. Am I allowing myself to be present, right? Am I being where I am so that I can be available for the clues in
Mm-hmm.
this moment? Because we can get so caught up in the doing. I got to do. We start shitting on ourselves for all that we're not or
Right.
doing. That that's a day. I won't even call it a struggle, because what I will say is that in my life right now, I recognize that what comes wrapped in sandpaper that appears to be a struggle
Mm-hmm.
is what I like to call a dip, to be deep in practice, right? It's an opportunity for me to exercise authenticity, for me to
Yeah.
exercise vulnerability, and for me to exercise transition. Like, okay, well, you know, where I was last week is not where I was today. This is today.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, Jaaz Jones, thank you so, so very much. Let people know how they can contact you.
Well, I'm all over social media. Yes, I am Chi Up with Jaaz. So if you want to get your Chi Up, I'm Chi Up with Jaaz on Instagram, as well as Facebook, TikTok, and my company Mad Miracles is the Mad Miracles fan page. What I'd really like to invite everyone to do, whether you Google iPhone or Android, you can download in your store the Mad Miracles app, the Miracles app. I have some of the breath work in there, and workshops where you can follow along and join the journey and have your own private sign in and follow the trainings, but definitely on social media. But I encourage everyone to it's a free app. So download the app and join me in breathing into our possibilities as we flow.
Thank you
And
so
that's
much.
Jaaz with two A's and one Z, by the way. So if you see
Absolutely.
Adrienne has it posted here, it's JAAZ.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I love you.
I love you. Thank you so much for this
Thank
opportunity.
you.